In this video, I'll quickly go through some features of Jamboard, particularly using graphic organizers in Jamboard. So, first things first, if you want to access the graphic organizers that I put together, check in your Google Drive, and you should find them under the Shared With Me part on the left sidebar. Just a note on that, when you have documents shared with you that you want to save and be able to find easily in your drive, right-click on them from the Shared With Me drive, because if you don't put them in your main drive, they're just going to get lost in a black hole of all the files that are shared with you in this Shared With Me drive. So make sure that you right-click on it. In your case, it would be the folder I shared, so it would look like this. And you'll click Add Shortcut to Drive. Select My Drive, and then you can create a folder right here by clicking that little plus sign for new folder and give it a folder like graphic organizers and click Add Shortcut. Adding shortcut, give it a moment. All right, so that way when you're in your Google Drive, you'll have something called a folder. There we are, called graphic organizers, and you will know where to find all these different graphic organizers whenever you need them, rather than going back to Shared With Me and searching through the abyss of all the files that have been shared with you. So that's what I recommend doing. All right, moving forward then, with this little cheat sheet, to get to Jamboard, you'll go to either jamboard.google.com or through the waffle, or if you're in your Google Meet, there are the three vertical dots all the way at the bottom right about here where I'm circling. And you can open up a whiteboard from there as well. All right, so those are three places to find exactly the same thing. So if you're in the waffle, for example, Jamboard is right here. If yours is lower down, right, Jamboard tends to be lower down, you can always click on it and drag it and move it closer to the top if you want to be able to find it more easily. All right, so I'm going to open up Jamboard through the waffle by just clicking on it. Here you'll have all your jams, as they call them, all your whiteboards that you've created will be here. You can click this little plus sign to create a new one. And there you go. It's just going to be a plain whiteboard like this. Right now, some things that you can do, and I have these listed here in the cheat sheet, so I'll just quickly go through them. First things first, don't leave the title as Untitled Jam, otherwise you're going to have a whole bunch of untitled jams and you're not going to be able to find something. So give it a good title. Just click up here and just give it a descriptive title. So let's say graphic All right, something like that. And dates are probably helpful if it's something that you want to refer back to in the future. All right, and then in step 3 here, I just go through some of the basic tools. I'll just quickly demo those. We have the pen, eraser, text box, post-it note, and the inserting image. All right, so the pen right here at the top, it does pretty much what you'd think it would do, right? You're drawing with the mouse, so it's not going to be something that you really can write with very much, because it's going to end up like this, right? And that's using a mouse, not the little trackpad on like a laptop. So and imagine students do it's not going to be pretty, so you don't use that too much. Though it is helpful for something like math if you want to go through, and write some sort of like mathematics problem. Yeah, that's a little bit more doable. So you might want to use it for that. You've also got the highlighter tool and the paintbrush. They do similar things, right? Basically the width is what changes there, right? The pen is going to be thinner, and as you go up the line there, the highlighter is a bit wider, and then the paintbrush. And of course you've got the different color options. All right, so that's basically the pen tool, which has these different widths. Right, next up in line is the eraser, and that does what you would expect. You basically just drag it over anything you want to erase. If it's like a big see how this works, like you might be better off just using the undo, and that'll just kind of just back up and take the full thing away. Right. Other option is if you just want to completely empty out your the whiteboard, just click clear frame, and that'll just clear everything. Right, so the eraser for little small details, backup will kind of undo your previous steps, or to just delete it all and start from fresh is clear frame. So there's your options there. Right, this is the select tool. I'll give you an example of how to use that in just a few seconds. All right, the sticky notes. It's pretty much just like a Post-it note. If you've used Padlet, right, and you can choose a different color for your Post-it notes, and then it'll add it to the page. Here you can expand it to make the size different. Here you can rotate it, and then of course moving it around, and then you could duplicate it. Order, let's see, how do I want to explain that one? Well, let me edit it and I'll show you. How about we go with, I'll change the color so you can see the difference. So I've got yellow and pink. If I wanted to change the order, I could send it backward, and see now the yellow goes behind the pink, right? And I could reverse that again, order, send back, right? And so that just, it basically kind of stacks them. So that's what that does, right? Or of course I could just delete or clear frame. Alrighty, I'll come back to that one in just a minute. This one here, shapes, it adds shapes. That's pretty self-explanatory, so you get the idea there. Okay. Again, you've got the same options. Order, duplicate, delete. Of course, you could always move them, rotate them, adjust the size, just like any other object. Change the color, change the outline, right? Things like this, all right? So those are all the options you have for shapes. I'm just going to delete them by hitting the delete button, or I can go here and delete from there, whatever you prefer. Okay, so now we'll talk about the main bit, which is using these graphic organizers. And the way you do that is you upload them as an image. So you can upload images to Jamboards, and then you can edit those images, like a graphic organizer, for example. If it's a PDF, then Jamboard really isn't the right tool to use. If you're going to be completing a PDF, then you want to use Cami. But if you have an image, then Jamboard might be the tool for you. So to add an image, first we'll find out what image we want to use, and you could upload any image, but since I had these graphic organizers, you'll go to the folder with your graphic organizers. Now I know I created that, but I actually have mine in a different folder, so you'll go to whatever folder you have your graphic organizers in. Okay, and we'll take there's a whole bunch here, so we could just use this one as an example. And this opens it. This is a Google drawing, right? So that's just another program that Google has for creating basically like drawings. And these are just shapes with arrows, but you can use them as graphic organizers. It's a good tool for creating those. So these are already created. So now at this point, all you need to do is download this as an image. So you'll just go to File and Download. Now, make sure you download it as an image file. That means not a PDF. It has to be either a JPEG or a PNG. Those are both image files. It has to be one of these two, right? So either one makes no difference, and that's going to download it, right? Next, you can go over to your Jamboard, and here it says Add Image. So you'll click on that, and then you can upload the image from wherever you have it. So in my case, I just downloaded it to the computer, but you might have yours in Google Drive. So you can add the image from Google Drive or Google Photos, or you can just search Google for one, right? What's rain? I always like the rain cycle, right? And you could find images straight from searching Google right inside of Jamboard. So that's another option. But in our case, I said I was going to use these graphic organizers, so I'm just going to click and drag this cause and effect graphic organizer, and there it is in my Jamboard. Now, of course, I want to probably make that a little bit larger, so I'll drag it over here in the corner and then drag from this circle down until I get it just about full size of the screen that I want. All right, and then from this point, then you can then complete this graphic organizer with your students. So perhaps you want to, give them a prompt. So maybe you're reading a story about right. So maybe you give your students a prompt, something like this. You are reading a story, maybe about the environment or cutting down the rainforest. And then you might ask your students, well, what are some effects of this? And so you can begin the discussion. And then I'm using the text box here, right? Not the pen tool, but the text box. And then I click on the tool here, and then I just click wherever I want to type. So let's say here in the effect. All right, so you get the idea, and then I can just click and drag to adjust the size of my box there. And I think this is a good font size, but I can change the font size to be bigger. Okay, that's obviously too much. So something like this will work. I think I have that. Yeah, I like that one. All right, so you get the idea, and then you can click the text box again. You can get some different ideas from students. This. All right, and so forth and so on down the line. And you complete your graphic organizer. Right, and then this last one, I think this is the only tool I haven't actually mentioned, the laser pointer. This is just a laser pointer. It draws attention to something. It's like a laser pointer would, right? You just can circle something to bring their attention towards it, and then it just kind of disappears on its own like that. So that's the laser pointer. All right, and that's pretty much it. Now, let's say you finish up your graphic organizer and you still have some more information that you want to share. Maybe you want to do a different graphic organizer. You don't have to delete this. Say you've got some good information and you want to be able to share this whiteboard with your students at a later date. You don't have to delete it or clear frame. You can just click the arrow over here, and that's going to give you a fresh whiteboard, but it doesn't delete the previous one, right? It's still here. Right. And in fact, you can see all the whiteboards you have by just clicking here, and it'll lay out all the whiteboards that you have right up here. Right. In this case, I've only got the 2 frames, but it'll show more if you have more. Right. And then I could do the same thing. I could use this fresh whiteboard for anything I wanted, including adding a new graphic organizer if I wanted. Right. Now, some other things. The share button works exactly the same as it does for any other Google programs. So I click on share. I can get a link to share, right? If I want to share that link with anybody in the district, I could do it that way. Or if I want to share it with specific students, right, I could do it that way as well. I could make that student or that other person either an editor or a viewer. Just be careful if you're making students editors. Know that they can do everything that you can do in a whiteboard, so including writing all over it or erasing something. So it's the sort of thing that you want to have some discussions with them about first, set some norms, talk about some digital citizenship type topics before setting them loose as editors on large group whiteboards. Right, and then you would just click send, for example. And then finally, some last things. The 3 little vertical dots here give you a couple options. So let's say you had, I'm going to go back to this. Let's say you had a nice graphic organizer, and you wanted to share this with smaller groups of students, right? So you've already got the organizer up there. That's not something that you want your students to do. But at this point, you could make a copy of it. Let's call it graphic organizer demo. We call that group A, and you could have a group B, and then you can make another copy, make it a group C. Give it a moment, and then you could share graphic organizer group A with just the students who are in group A. So demo student 2, say, for example, or demo student. You could share it, and then you could make them editors in it so that they could edit it in more smaller groups, right? And you could, again, create as many of these copies, group A, group B, group C, and so forth, as you need for your small groups. So that's one way that you could use this for small groups and allow them to be editors without having your entire class editor on the same document at the same time, okay? And then this is, I believe, the last thing. If you have good information on your graphic organizer, it's something that you want to then give students to use as a resource, maybe for studying, or maybe to post in your Google Classroom as a material for students who are absent on a particular day. You can download these slides as a PDF or as an image. I usually just use PDF. Give it a moment, and there you go. It'll download that as a PDF, and then you could share that with students in Google Classroom or any other way that you want to share that document, right? So there it is as a PDF. Okay, so I believe that wraps up all the main features of using Jamboard. Let's just quickly check our cheat sheet, make sure I covered adding frames, downloading as PDF, and making it copies. Yes, we talked about all of those things. So that's it for the basics of using Jamboard and using it to complete graphic organizers with your students. If you have any questions at all, just let me know.